All right, hey, it's John here from Nintex. So as you may or may not be aware, capturing data from a repeating section on a form and presenting that within another repeating section on a different form, currently not possible, unfortunately. But I did come up with a little bit of a workaround if you just want to display those values. So let's kind of dive in here. I've got the workflow pulled up. I think it's pretty straightforward, pretty simple, but let's take a look. So of course I've got my start form here, four different values within my repeating section, and this could be, of course, as many controls or fields as you need it to be, right? Just keeping it simple for the sake of this example. Right, and I just approve they're in a repeating section, so we are good to go there. Now, of course, those variables are going to be put into a collection for the repeating section. So basically just storing them in a separate variable that's going to capture those individual values. So what I'm going to do is we're going to take those values and actually create a HTML table on the fly that we can take and insert into another task form. So I've got a few different create a string actions here. This first one is basically just setting up the table, so opening it up, creating the headers, and we're going to save that in a variable called table begin, just to keep kind of organized with what we're doing here. Then we go into a loop for each. This loop for each is pointed to the repeating section variable that comes from the start event form. You can see the source start event form variables. And then with that, coming into this next create a string action, we can reference each individual field from that repeating section. So because because this action is within this loop for each, I can reference the current item and pull out the asset, those individual fields. So all this action is doing is creating a new row and then creating those cells and setting those values that are going to display in the cell, closing the row, and then it's actually including the variable that we're saving to. So basically what this means is the first time it runs, oh boy, it's going to kind of look like that. Next time it runs, it'll add another one, and so on and so on until it gets to the end of the loop, whether there's 100 rows or whether there's just 5 rows or 1 row, right? So it'll create all these different rows in here. It'll save that end result into that table rows variable. And from there, this last create a text string is just going to combine that table begins variable, that table rows variable, and then it's going to close the table and save all those values in this table finished separate variable here. Okay, so from there, I have a task action here. This is a form task in this case. And all I'm doing is creating a label control and setting the value of that label to that table finished variable. So I can come in here, this insert section, user defined variables, and table finished. I'm just clicking that insert button there. All right. So with that being said, let's actually just publish this real quick, get that form link, and let's see it in action. All right, so I'm just going to put some gibberish in here. I don't know, $2,000 laptop, 6.7, I don't know, desktop, 621, desktop was $1,500. All right, so I'm going to submit this form. It's going to run through, of course, performing all of those actions, and then very quickly here I'll get a task. So just popping over to the My Nintex dashboard. And as you probably heard, my email just went off, so that means I got the task. So once this loads, I'll see the task in my kind of queue for me to complete. Eventually it will pop open. Sorry, having some internet issues today. There it is. Okay. And as we can see, both of those values, or excuse me, both of those rows that I created were created here. Now, it's not quite in the order that I initially submitted the form in, and that's just because of the order here. So if I really wanted to make that consistent, you would just throw that table rows variable at the beginning instead of at the end, and that should get the order correct, right? And then from there, right? So in reality, you're probably taking that data and pushing it to some sort of data source, right? Attaching that ID to it and whatnot, and making sure everything is kind of staying in sync. So from there, what you can do is, if you want someone to add other information, right? I'll just type in that asset amount, maybe the book value for that laptop drop down to $100 because it's been, maybe it's an old laptop or something like that. Maybe you got ripped off, whatever it is. And there's a lot more stuff you could do, right? You could limit the number of rows there are, you can limit the number of rows you can add to the task form based on the number of rows that are in the initial form. And like I said before, formatting this table can be done just with some of those different HTML controls. And yeah, that's all I had for this demo. As far as a reference, I don't consider myself a developer at all. I'm just kind of flying by on the skin of my teeth here with the HTML building of the table. Really good reference is the W3 schools. I literally like copy and pasted and updated this to do what I wanted. But this has information about styling and padding and all that fun stuff. Basically everything you might ever need to know about HTML tables, but also, as you can see, a lot of other HTML topics. W3 Schools is a really great resource in my opinion. So that is that. Thanks for watching.